So the next project I'm going to work on is pressure canning some stew beef. But I just realized that this has been in the fridge, so it's gonna have to sit. But this is the stew beef that I have. It's probably probably 4 pounds. Probably 4 pounds. Not 100% certain. But what I'm going to do with it is once it gets to room temperature, I'm going to can it, pressure can it, and it'll be needing to pressure can for about 90 minutes for pints. But I'm going to use some Montreal Steak seasoning instead of salt and pepper, and then some smoked paprika. We love smoked paprika. But so I've got this meat which needs to warm up. I've got a funnel. I've got 5 regular mouth pint jars. I've got my handy dandy get the air out thing, air bubbler, the magnet for the jar lids, and then this lifter. I've got 5 screw-ons, and then I've got 5 lids, new lids, okay? And then I've got this electric pressure canner. Let me pull it a little closer to you so you can see. Yeah, see, I just saw one of these lids have a chip in it right there. So I won't pressure can with it. So I've got one more jar. Let's try to grab that mini. But this is an electric pressure canner. You can pressure cook in it, you can water bath in it, and you can pressure can in it. This is what I'm using most of the time. And I'm pressure canning pints. I've pressure canned chicken in here, I've pressure canned beans, I've pressure canned broth. I know that my limit is 5 pints, right? You can pressure can, I believe, 4 quarts, and you can water bath pints, but you cannot water bath quarts in here. So I got this on one of those Amazon used item like new deals, and I saved like $15 off of this. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get this put over here on my counter, and let this meat come to room temperature for about an hour or 2 before I get started on this. Alrighty, so back to getting to work on this. So how I'm going to season this is with some smoked paprika. I'm gonna, and some Montreal Steak seasoning, like I said. And this is salty, so I'm probably have put maybe a tablespoon for this whole 3 to 4 pounds. And then I'm gonna massage it up. Now I'm making this for the other members of the family that are meat eaters. I'm not a meat eater. So I think I got that nice and seasoned up there. And let me just take a step back. So make sure when you are canning and you're learning how to can, that you are using a reputable resource. So if you can see here, I have this book from the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension. And then I bought this from, I think, Ollie's, but it's the Complete Book of Home Canning from the USDA. You can get the Complete Book of Home Canning as PDF downloads from, I believe it's the National Home Food Preservation site. The University of Georgia is the owner of that, I believe. But if I look at both of these books and looking at meat and pressure canning meat, and the reason I'm pressure canning meat is because meat is a low acid food. So you have to pressure can it in order to safely preserve the meat. So I pressure can my meat and I am raw packing it. And according to both of these books, to raw pack meat, you will need to pressure can it at 11 pounds pressure if it's a dial gauge, or if it's a weighted gauge at 10 pounds pressure. And if you're doing pints, it's 75 minutes. I'm doing pints 75 minutes. Or I'm between the 1 and 1,000 feet of sea level. So it's 75 minutes. So I just want to get that, and there's a lot of resources. And once you become comfortable with canning, or may already be comfortable with canning, you can choose what to do, what you're comfortable with doing for your family. So I'm not sure how much this is going to fill, how many jars this is going to fill, but I need to fill it up to 1 inch headspace. It says do not add liquid, but my experience has been that I need to add just a little something. I'm going to top it off after I've released all the air in the jar. I'm just going to give it a little bit of water. So I'm just going to fill this up. I washed this meat and trimmed it up. And if I end up not having enough meat for all of these jars, I will probably can some water. That fifth one may end up being water. So what I'm doing now is trying to take this glove off, trying to avoid, or trying to get rid of the air pockets, because that will cause siphoning off as well. All right, and then I've got it at a 1 inch headspace right here. And then I'm doing this one. So while this meat is being canned, it's being cooked. My house is going to smell good. Okay. So there is that. And I'm just going to top it off with some water. You can fuss at me in the comments if you're like, you're not supposed to do that, but I'm doing it. Beef chunks before, but I have canned ground beef before. The ground beef was okay. They didn't like sing the praises of it like they really like the chicken. And then after I get done getting this situated, I'm gonna do a good sink sanitization. And I'm just feeling a little uneasy about that extra jar that I have. I'm gonna wash it again because it was in proximity of that meat and water. And I don't want meat juice canned water. So that's a 1 inch head space. I'm gonna leave this one off to the side. Get a paper towel and moisten it with vinegar. Since I used that funnel that covered the top, I don't have a situation where like the rim got touched. But you still have to clean. And I'm cleaning the water one first so that I don't cross-contaminate the vinegar wipe. So when you, so you have this lid, and then I should have used this to pick up the lid, but I didn't. But what you need to do then is put on the band, and that felt like that moved. So then you put on the band, and you you turn it until your fingers can't turn it anymore. So just finger tight. So don't like crank down on it. And this band feels like it's got a dent in it. So I want as much success as possible on the meat. The water, I'm not gonna have my heart broken over if it doesn't. So this is the liner of the pressure canner, and I've got the trivet or whatever it's called, and then I'm going to put these in here. And like I said, this thing will take 5 pints, 4 quarts for pressure canning. All right, so I've got everything in here. I'm gonna take this over to the device. So this is the pressure canner. This is the meat in here. So the instructions for pressure canning are place your jars in there with the canning rack, that's what it's called, and then you're gonna add 8 cups of hot water. Here you go. Place your jars in and then add 8 cups of hot water. So I'm gonna use hot tap water. So this is 4 cups, and then this is 4 more cups. So as you can see, the water's in here, but it's not covering it, all right? So the next step is select the high button from the control panel, press time to set the canning recipe required process time, and set the pressure limit valve to exhaust, and then press start, okay? Then the digital dial chase will begin to rotate, and this will continue until the correct internal temperature is reached, which can be up to 30 minutes. All right, that's the dial. So it says close the lid and lock the lid. So I'm going to take it right here to where it's going to close. I close the lid and I lock the lid. Then you set the high button on the control panel. Then you press time and you set it to the time that you need the recipe to be for. So for quarts, it's going to be for pints, it's going to be 75 minutes. And then you're going to press start. And then the digital dial chase will begin to rotate, and this will continue until the correct internal temperature is reached for it to start. And then I also have this on exhaust. So on here is 2 spots for exhaust, one on each end, and then one for airtight. While it's coming to pressure, it needs to be on exhaust. So what will happen next is the steam will begin venting through the pressure limiting valve, and once the pressure canner reaches the correct internal temperature, the canner will beep once, and then the display will read E10 here. Okay, and once that reads E10, it will count down automatically to E0, and once the control displays a blinking E0, the canner will beep once, and at that time you need to change the pressure limiting valve to airtight. That is all that happens. I'll come back intermittently until it starts to come to pressure to show you what things look like. In the meantime, I am going to tidy up some of this meat juice stuff and work on sanitizing. All right, so now the canner is reading E10. There will be a lot more activity as this counts down from E10 to E0. I'm not sure if you can hear it. Let me get closer. But the water in the canner is at a rolling boil right now. So just as a reminder, we're gonna keep the pressure limiting valve on exhaust. So there'll probably start being some steam that'll come up and things like that. So it's about to start getting to the point where it will beep and let me know that it needs for me to change the pressure limiting valve from exhaust to airtight. Okay, so now what's happening is the pressure is, I'm not sure if you can see that, but there's steam, and now it is ready for me to turn it from exhaust to airtight. So I've turned it from exhaust to airtight, and it is now going to count down, and it's going to maintain the right pressure electronically without me having to come and stay and watch do the effort that it takes when you are pressure canning on the stove. When the countdown procedure is complete, the canner will beep 3 times and the control panel will read off. At that point, I'll have to unplug the pressure canner and allow the temperature and pressure inside the canner to gradually decrease. The canner should be allowed to cool for 1 hour before attempting to open the lid. All right, so the pressure canner has stopped. It has beeped, and it is now sitting here saying off, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is unplug it, because that's what the instructions say. It smells really good in here. It is in the airtight setting of the weighted gauge. In 1 hour, I can come back and pull these out, and then it's recommended for any canning that you've done, that you let it sit somewhere where it doesn't get disturbed for 24 hours. Hopefully, if I don't fall asleep, I'm gonna come back in an hour and pull these out and have them somewhere where I can set them aside. So this was a successful canning session thus far. It smells really good in here. It smells like, you know, like beef stew was cooking. Hopefully everything's sealed. So we'll come back in 1 hour. So it's been an hour, and now I can take, oops. Turn the exhaust. Okay, this looks incredible. I'm going to start taking them out one time, and I am clumsy natured. So let me bring these over here. It looks like there might have been some siphoning off. There's oil in the water. And just remember, things are gonna be like probably extra red because I put paprika in the seasoning. Yeah, I can tell one of them probably siphoned off. And then this is the water. So this is what's left, and as I can say, there's some oil in the water. These are the jars. You really hone in on things, you can see that they're boiling actively. So that is the spot where I'm going to leave them. And then I have this handy dandy note to tell them to not touch for 24 hours. It looks like all the lids sealed from initial inspection. I'll come back and I'll give you a check-in. That's how everything turned out. I don't eat meat, so I don't have a taste test. But the first time that I use this, I won't have a reaction or a taste test. But the first time that I use a can of this beef, I'll ask the guys what they thought about it and then report back in a later video. After that point, we can inspect it to make sure that the lids are actually staying concave, take the bands off, wipe the jars and label them so that I know what they are or anybody else knows what they are and when they were canned. Okay, it is about 9 hours from when these have been pulled out of the pressure canner. As you can see, there's the meat, and it cooked in mostly its own juices with water. And then this is where the fat has risen to the top because it's, lighter than the water. And then there is some of the meat that is still here that is exposed to the air, but it is sealed due to being under pressure. What I'm going to do is let these sit for a few more hours and then wash them off and label them, take the bands off, and then put them in storage. You don't want to store them with the bands on because that creates a false seal. But yeah, everything is looking good. And then the distinct reddish orange color that you see is because I used paprika as one of the addition of spices, and that's why it looks that way. And to me, it's a little bit more pleasing than what it would look like just without that. But yeah, this is going to be ready to eat at any time. And then this is the jar of water that I pressure canned. And as you can see, it is sealed properly, and it needs to be wiped off and labeled and put into storage as well. So that's it for pressure canning beef roast. Thank you for watching today's video. I really appreciate you being here. Please remember, if you have any questions or comments, to leave them below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also remember to hit the notification bell so that you can be notified every time I post a video. I hope today is the goodest of your good days, and may everything fall into place for you. Thank you, friends, and I'll see you again next time.